Welcome to GreenHome Certifications and Labels 101. My name is Brett Little, and I am the Executive Director at the Alliance for Environmental Sustainability, and I really appreciate your time for listening in to this session, and I hope I can help give you a little better understanding of GreenHome residential certification programs. This program is brought to you by the Alliance for Environmental Sustainability. We are a 501c3 nonprofit with a catalyst to be market transformation through the built environment, through education, third-party verification, and partnerships. You can learn more about the Alliance and what we do at www.alliances.org. Today we're going to do a quick overview of why green homes, review the majority of available green home certification programs, and then focus on the Midwest for these types of programs where our focus and our all of our resources and profiles are going to be from. But we'll be covering and comparing and contrasting national programs, so there will be some national relevancy within the framework of this webinar. So the basics here to the introduction to the program and the organizations behind it. For each of the certification programs. Then we're going to cover just some baseline requirements for each programs, types of buildings for each of the certification programs that are applicable, the different pillars of green, 5 key categories of green, all of the different areas that each program focuses on. We'll do an initial introduction to point weightings. We'll look at the third-party strength in the process for third-party certification. We'll look at their popularity and use, education and resources that go along with each program, any kind of political or advocacy work that these organizations might be doing behind the programs, current updates, take a real quick look at costs, hard and soft, and then wrap each one of these programs up with an opinion and summary. And then this is what we'll do for each program, and at the end we'll do a major comparison. So you know that green is growing and that green housing projects have been growing steadily, accounting for 20% of all newly built homes last year. In both the residential and commercial sector, by 2016, we're looking at green building being an $87 billion industry, with 40% of all construction being in the green. Now, a lot of this can have to do with progressing energy codes here. Here's a great quick resource that you'll have in your handout just showing, it might be a little bit out of date. I had to make a change here to Illinois, which is now in the 2012 IECC Energy Code, but just showing where each of the states are. Here in the Midwest, if you average all the codes together, you'll probably see most of our states are in the 2006, with Illinois leading the way at 2012. And Michigan and Iowa and Pennsylvania kind of coming up behind them with having the 2009 energy codes. And the way the codes work is that the 2006 is usually considered the baseline when you're looking at a HERS index rating, which we'll get into later. 2009 means it's 15% more energy efficient. 2012 means 30% more energy efficient. And then the 2015 code means it's going to be 15% more energy efficient than the standard built to code 2006 home if you're using the logic of the home energy labeling index. But a lot of states get these codes and they do water them down, so that is not always necessarily consistent. As I mentioned, if you just look at the progress of what's going on, each of the states here on the left side, as you can see, just rapidly more codes are coming in across the U.S. A lot of them are more stringent codes. Same in the commercial sector when you're considering multifamily and mixed-use housing, looking at the ASHRAE standard as well for those codes progressing. And one thing that's interesting is that even the states that don't have an official state energy code, on average, 52% of their municipalities have followed the International Energy Code to some degree, which can certainly cause a lot of confusion if you're working all over the state. Besides just codes, the National Association of Home Builders has shown that homeowners, 9 out of 10 of them, are definitely more willing to pay for energy efficiency, with 71% of those home buyers preferring a home with energy ratings and predicted usage. 80% of consumers are saying if they were 187 green certified homeowners on the National Green Building Standard. More than 94% of them would recommend a green home to a friend or family member. And that the multiple listing service, which helps value green homes and allows them to be sold at a higher value from the realtor standpoint, is something that is progressing across Minnesota, half of Wisconsin, Traverse City and Chicago have had a green MLS, and now West Michigan. This multiple listing service is in Colorado, Florida, and is expanding to include fields that identify green attributes and certifications. As you know, in certain parts of the country, there are premiums for certified homes, and sometimes they sell much faster and stay on the market not as long. And that for apartment rents, just second to central business districts, is premiums being a little bit higher for LEED certified buildings, which could apply to almost any other type of green certification, as being the second highest in demand besides connectivity. Green affordable housing has third-party verifiable measures that can be reviewed by donors and supporters, gets volunteers excited and engaged. Sometimes state or federal requirements have these for tax credits or incentives. And then this is a very proactive approach for those who might be facing health issues that they can't cover in the affordable housing, a way to help avoid costly doctor and hospital issues. And of course, reduced cost of living, having more money in your pocket, not worrying about paying for energy. And just an example, having to choose between food or heat, is that something that we want folks to have to decide in the affordable housing realm? So the perception, though, oftentimes for green homes is that an alien spacecraft has landed in my neighborhood. But homes are full of solar panels, wind turbines, have no windows. They're totally keeping the heat in. Are built super small. Can't be a decent size, and are made out of all natural products and wood. But the reality is that a green certified home is likely one that from the outside you may not be able to tell that there's anything special on first notice, and that all multifamily buildings and single family homes that are green, most of them, again, look like the average project. So how do you define green? You may define it as energy efficient, healthy, and safe. The next person may be looking at durability and water efficiency, and then others might be looking at how you affect the larger environment and larger community. So there's all many different definitions of green, and that's where third-party verification and certification programs come into play as a way to certainly name what green is, and to give a focus on something that's certainly verifiable and follows a measure, rather than this loosely defined term. And so, what's important to us is, independent verification of achievements, quality assurance, and audible results is what's something that actually makes a program, green verified. And so having that certificate or plaque, in some sense appears to be a marketing tool, but is also a way to set yourself apart as a green building leader, because you've went through the process and you've met the requirements, and you stand out from the average person and builder and company who says that they build green. It's the same as someone who says that they build quality. So when we talk about green building, there's certainly other programs that we have, Introduction to GreenHome 101, Introduction to GreenHome Remodeling 101 that you might want to check. But, overall we're talking about the 5 to 7 key categories of green: energy efficiency, indoor environmental quality, water conservation, resource efficiency, site and community impact, location efficiency, and innovation or regional priorities, things that affect your particular region. So we always like to say that green begins with blue. So again, energy efficiency is where we start. So certain programs that revolve around improving energy efficiency and using tools and miles per gallon scores for homes and buildings are usually the place that everybody starts, and where most programs, hitch themselves to. And then usually you're looking at, once you've tightened the building, once you've built it tight, you want to ventilate it right. So we're looking at indoor environmental quality, and some programs have a big focus on that indoor environmental and indoor air quality. And then once you get that down, you're looking at the efficiency of your resources. So resources such as water, as material, as your waste, what's going on with that, how you plan and build your site. And so, a lot of other green building programs that, look at the whole thing as holistically are going to include these in the program. And then lastly, we're going to be getting into the idea of being restorative. So actually building and remodeling homes and multifamily buildings that give back to the environment, that give back to nature, and start to repair some of the environmental, social, and economic damage that's been done. So, as we go through this, it's about identifying where you see yourself. And so many of these programs fall into different levels, all the way from, on the left side of the bell curve, to building and remodeling homes without following the energy laws, all the way to, following the current energy codes, and then moving into the market shift, being a green leader, and then looking at the 5%, the risk takers. Which of these programs sort of delve into that 5%, and really where do you see yourself along this scale? Another way to look at the continuum again is where each of these programs fall from a typically built code home to just simply being a better home, to high performance and green. Looking at which programs are starting to pursue the concept of sustainability, and then lastly, moving into that realm of being restorative and regenerative. And again, the idea of this is just to figure out where you see yourself on this scale, who the clients are you're trying to serve, and then use one of these programs as a way to tell your story. So, at the Alliance, our biggest contribution is just educating builders, remodelers, architects, developers, homeowners, to help them determine where they are and then where they want to be, where are they headed, and help give resources and tools to do that. So the rest of this program, we will showcase each of the certification options and be able to help answer some of your questions on how they compare and which one makes the most sense for you. So of course, first we're going to start with energy scores and home energy rating tools and systems as usually the foundations and baselines to GreenHome programs. Energy scores often look at using blower door testing in pre-drywall, post-drywall, finals, and then also in existing homes, and then to get an air changes per hour to understand what your air leakage rates are, looking at IR cameras to see what's behind the walls as far as insulation quality and quantity, doing insulation inspections, looking at the efficiency of heating and cooling and ventilation systems, looking at lighting, appliances, and then sometimes even looking at the way the house is oriented towards the sun, and U values and windows as well are some of the different things that we're looking at with these types of scoring tools. So the first system I want to talk about is something fairly new. It's called the Home Energy Score, the HESS. It's a program developed by the Department of Energy, and this is a scoring tool from on the outset is a 1 through 10, which basically compares you to your neighbors and your relative area, neighborhood, city. So 1 being you perform pretty terrible compared to your neighbors, and then 10 is fairly well. This scoring tool has been used on probably about 12,000 homes now across about 20 different states. It's been recognized by the Building Performance Institute, and so for someone to utilize this tool, they would need to work with a BPI rater who's going to go through a training and pass a test to utilize this tool. Or a residential energy efficiency network rater, a ResNet HERS rater, can also use this tool and pass the same test. But it is going to be the official rating system of BPI for as far as a home score moving forward here. I think they've got their pilot pretty much done in Florida, and then there's other pilots around of course, around the Midwest. And if somebody wants to get involved with this, I believe they need to sign up about 200 homes if they're interested. The next scoring tool here, at least in the Midwest, is the Residential Energy Performance Score. This scoring tool was developed, the algorithm for it was developed by Michael Blasnick, who's a building scientist who now works for Google. He was trying to develop a really quick and effective way for a rater to go into an existing home and understand, how energy is being lost and where it's being used, and come up with a quick way and fairly accurate way to assess this. There's some studies done online on how this compares to the DOE HES score, but this is another tool that's moving fast across the Midwest and across the nation. In the Midwest here, it's a 1 through 70 score, or a 0 through 70 score, and it kind of works like a car. Under 20, your home is a gas guzzler. 30 to 40, your home performs decently well, and over 50, it's a high-performance home. The energy performance score, developed by Cake, has many different names in different places. The Oregon Energy Trust use it. Massachusetts Saves uses as the home MPG. So there's been about 20,000 homes that have used the tool to score in about 20 different states, and it's expanding rapidly as well. One thing you get with this score on the backside is you get a really cool output that shows your kilowatt hour equivalents, or KBTU, per year, and that breaks that down between electric and natural gas. So you get a quick understanding of where you're at, where you'll be when you make your upgrades, and then how you compare to your states or your region. And then if you're interested, you also get your carbon emissions score, and you can offset that if that's something you're interested about. And of course, this whole report is it comes with photos and comes with improvements, ROI costs, and all can be customized and built that way as far as utilizing it outside of the Midwest. Energy rating system, the HERS index, is one of the most popular scoring tools. It's now being used on somewhere between a third and a half of all new single-family construction, multifamily, and then some existing major rehabs. This HERS index label is a 0 through 100, with 100 being a 2006 IECC built-to-code home. Anything worse than 100 is going to, score a little bit higher, and then at 0 is a zero energy home. The average, GreenHome usually gets about 65 on the index, and for every score that goes down by 1, it's a 1% projected energy savings compared to the reference home. Most of these programs can be used on single-family, low-rise multifamily homes, single-family production, major gut rehabs. If you're doing mid-rise and multifamily, you can use the HERS index. Just has a couple different things you have to know about it. And then mid-rise, mixed-use, high-rise, don't really use it. With additions and remodels, that's really where the home energy score and the residential energy performance score were developed, to really get those assessments for those. If you're not opening up the walls and exposing them, the HERS index is not very accurate, and it's pretty time consuming to utilize. The HERS index also gives you a certificate, an output rating, and you get your 5+ energy rating, and then you also get a full assessment on the your heating costs and use, cooling, water, appliances, as well as all the details of your house. The HERS index does have a really cool tool online. It's really homeowner friendly. If you have a client you want to send them that way, they can kind of play with the tool, move it up and down, see what their score means as far as savings and projected costs, and maybe what it would take to get to that type of rating if that's what they're looking for as an existing homeowner or new home buyer. So building off of these energy scoring tools, and especially the HERS index, we want to get into the Energy Star for Homes program. Energy Star has a very recognized program for lighting, appliances, HVAC systems, but they also have a certification tool for homes entirely, looking at the entire house as a system. And so they have upgraded from version 2 to the version 3 protocol now, and that's in full swing. And some things that are a little bit different with that is you're looking at about 4 different checklists. One of them deals with the envelope, insulation, and air sealing. 2 of them have to do with the HVAC, startup, and then commissioning and design of the heating, ventilation, and cooling system. And then interestingly, where Energy Star kind of gets out of just energy and goes beyond that into durability, you have a water management checklist as well. The Energy Star program does have a sliding HERS index scale. So in the version 2, you had to have an 85 on your HERS index rating. Now it slides, I believe, around 70, and it moves up and down depending on how many bedrooms you have and how big the house is. One interesting thing is that this program does require a certified or credentialed heating and cooling professional. In the old program, the heating and cooling professional just needed to provide the manual J and D design calculations for proper sizing. Now they actually have to be credentialed to verify that they know how to do that and know about the program. It does require duct leakage testing in conditioned spaces. Requires mostly, depending on what state you're in, better than code air sealing, such as airtight drywall. And really, the trained HVAC is kind of the largest hurdle of the program. We've dealt with trying to train HVAC, heating and cooling folks, and it's certainly just tough. The economy's down, they're very busy, and to get them to go through a credentialing program has been difficult across the U.S., but especially in the Midwest. Most of these credentialing training can be done all online. You can go to Advanced Energy, who's out of South Carolina, and go to their website and get that training right through the internet. Or you can go to the Air Conditioning Contractors of America, ACA, who will also provide that training and credentialing all through the internet as well for your heating and cooling contractors. So here's a real quick introduction to the checklist. Thermal enclosure, air leakage, insulation, installation, air barriers, thermal bridging, high performance windows. Again, builders making sure that they're doing all this, the energy rater's in, inspecting, making sure that this has all been done with notes. The HVAC quality installation system, which is broken into 2 checklists. Again, we're looking at the efficiency of the equipment, making sure it's right sized. If you have oversized equipment, it works a lot harder, fires up and down, reduces the durability. Looking at room air distribution, refrigerant charge testing, duct installation, hard ducted, flex ducted, pressure balancing, ventilation and filtration on a room by room, and then a house basis, making sure you've got the proper ventilation rates. And then again, where we go into outside of just energy and look at durability, we're looking at the water management system, so roof membranes, flashing, WRBs, fabric filters, capillary breaks, drainage. This program provides all sorts of guidance on how to do that, why to do that in your climate zone, and then ensures that the rater's inspecting that. The Energy Star program is applicable to single-family, low-rise, single-family production. On mid-rise multifamily, you can use it if it's 4 or 5 stories. You can use it on a 4 or 5 story building as long as you have decentralized heating and cooling systems, as well as a decentralized water system is one of the biggest requirements. If it's all centralized, then you can't use Energy Star. You got to use ASHRAE. And then there is, for mixed-use high-rise and high-rise multifamily, there is a program you can use called the Energy Star High Rise. It works a little differently, but the conventional Energy Star does not work for high rise. Um, Down here, additions and remodels definitely cannot be utilized, and even in the gut rehab, you're really talking about tearing out that slab foundation in the basement, especially air sealing and insulating the entire thermal envelope, removing drywall on the interior or removing the siding on the exterior to really ensure that the entire house is sealed up in that thermal enclosure checklist. So it is certainly tough to do. One interesting thing about the Energy Star program and the HERS index is a study found that energy efficiency and mortgage risks were correlated fairly well. And this is not a small study. This was 71,000 Energy Star and non-Energy Star rated single-family homes that they looked at, and what they found was that those that had a HERS index rating and Energy Star certification had a 32% lower mortgage default risk, and that risk decreased the higher that the HERS rating was. So basically saying, more money or less money being spent on energy, more of it kept in the pockets, and just safeguarded against defaulting on that typing house or structure. And you can check that out at the Institute for Market Transformation. Pretty interesting study. Market outlook, 20% market share in new homes U.S. wide in 2013. Again, those figures are kind of contested between on the Energy Star side. It depends on where you're at. Really in the Midwest, we had not so much traction. Indiana and Illinois had quite a bit. Here, West Michigan, where I'm from, we had pretty much an entire drop-off from the program when they changed from version 2 to version 3. Though it is regaining traction. We know that the Habitat for Humanity, I believe, nationally is a huge supporter of it, and they're definitely leaders here in the Midwest of utilizing the Energy Star version 3 program. One thing you'll also find is the EPA's Indoor Air Plus program, which is a great guidance program on indoor air quality measures and a whole checklist that they have free on their website. This is also a third-party certification that goes hand in hand with Energy Star. So actually the only way to certify an Indoor Air Plus home is that it must also be Energy Star version 3 certified. So if you're interested, you can go beyond energy and get into the air quality measurements and requirements, or you can just use it as a good guidance tool. Along with that is the EPA has also developed the WaterSense program, and you might recognize this just like Energy Star has appliances. They now also certify WaterSense devices, flow rates, fixtures, toilets, even WaterSense professionals, WaterSense outdoor landscaping, watering devices. But they do now certify whole homes, and you can have a certified WaterSense home by working with your local Energy Star partner. Some of the interesting things about this WaterSense program is that they do look at water leakage and pressure testing in new and existing homes. And one other thing that's unique is they actually kind of look at water quality and filtration and require that the quality is looked at, which goes a little bit beyond just efficiency and actually looks at the health of the water coming out. So that's a cool free tool that you can check out online too, and then also get certified through a second-party rater for WaterSense. So on the third-party verification side, the HERS index is a second party, and what the HERS raters are doing for both Energy Star and HERS inspection is they're doing a pre-drywall, so they're trying to give a rating as to see how well that insulation was installed, and if there's an issue, they'll let the contractor know to come back and correct it, and then they do a final inspection, a final blower door, and then that's how they take their air changes per hour, their installation quality, all of the appliances, HVAC, and then they spit out the score. And then again, this is a second party program, but oftentimes in practice we see it being more third party. And then the great thing is that the rater is audited by a third party HERS provider company who's coming out and actually auditing 1% of all of their projects. Building off of Energy Star and government-backed programs, we have the Department of Energy's Zero Energy Ready Home. You may have also just recently heard of this home being the Department of Energy's Challenge Home. Essentially, this is a sort of niche certification that builds off the success of Energy Star, and then also looks at ways of designing a home that is ready to have renewables added and to get to zero energy. So this program is good for new and major rehabs and is built off as a baseline using the HERS index, which gets you to Energy Star version 3 certification. And interestingly, they also require you in this program to follow the 2012 International Energy Code, which both Energy Star and the 2012 code do complement each other because both are missing certain applications that you can look into. And then finally, the program requires you to both get the EPA Indoor Air Plus certification and then the water sense. So it is looking at water efficiency. So it must be Energy Star version 3, water sense, meet the 2012 ICC specs. It does have some stuff for an efficient plumbing system in there. And then it does need to be renewable ready, so oriented towards the sun, and then enough roof space to put on the amount of kilowatts from your solar to offset the projected energy use of the house. And then they do have an optional package here for the homes that are being built in more tornado or hurricane prone areas to design the house to be safe to withstand that as well. Again, this program can be used for most types of construction. Of course, a gut rehab is always going to be difficult with Energy Star to rip up that slab. Mid-rise multifamily, as long as it's 4 or 5 stories with decentralized heating, cooling systems, and water heating, and additions and remodels just aren't going to work out in this program. It is pass-fail. It's not any kind of certification level. They have components of energy, water, and health. As far as their materials go, they don't look at recycled content or anything. They're just looking at durability. And then they do water reduction with the indoor or with the water sense program, but they're not looking at native landscaping or restoring flora and fauna. It's a second-party Energy Star HERS Train Rater who can do the visual site inspection, pre-drywall, a final inspection after the drywall is up, and then the rater is audited by their third-party HERS provider. Does not appear to be very popular, though it is gaining more traction. As far as the Midwest goes, I was told by the folks at DOE that there's not enough incentives in the Midwest to grow it. There's probably about 4,000 homes in the U.S. that are certified and another 8,000 in the pipeline. A couple single family in the Midwest. One of our builders did that. And then a neighborhood is apparently underway. A whole neighborhood of these homes is underway in the Chicagoland area. Builders need to take an online orientation just to get the Energy Star version 3. That's usually low to no cost. There's no other requirements, but there's plenty of live and recorded webinar resources from DOE if you go to their website that can help you understand how to utilize this program. Is it political? It's run by the Department of Energy, so in its own natural way, it is a governmental backed program, but does not. It's bipartisan in nature. The cost, there's no change from Energy Star. It's totally just another program added on top of that. Raters typically charge $200 to $1,500, but that could be even higher now because this requires a little more verification than the Energy Star version 3 program. And also, if you're a designer, builders could charge more because of the extra details they have to do to get this done. Now, Passive House is a program that started in the U.S. during the 70s energy crisis. That died down, and then it went over to Germany and became much more relevant over there and built out, and now is back into the U.S. and it's being delivered under the guise of the new Passive House Institute U.S. There is also the Passive House Institute, which is something you might see, which is the German version of the program. They've actually decided to split and part ways for various reasons. You'll also see the Passive House Alliance, which is the sort of education membership arm of the FIAS, Passive House Institute US. So what Passive House US has done is aligned itself with successful US American programs, and now is putting itself as those programs as its backbone. The German version does not require any of these American programs, and so they've done that because in different climate zones in the US call for different energy specifications, and the German version is really only set up for like climate zones potentially 5 through 7, and so they do not help address building issues down in more southern areas. So now Passive House is built on the standard HERS index, so you have to have a HERS score in your program. You also have to use Energy Star version 3 and the pathway from the 2012 IECC code. On top of that, you also have to get the Indoor Air Plus and then even Water Sense. So this really goes to show that using Energy Star, using EPA Indoor Air Plus, and using Water Sense moves this Passive House, which ultimately was always just called an energy program, into a durability with Energy Star, durability with EPA and Water Sense, and then looking at healthy indoor air quality and even stringent water requirements as well. And so if you can continue to see where this is going, they have now hitched themselves to the Zero Energy Ready Home, and so not only are they Passive House, but they're also with their low loads in the program utilizing the backbones of these certification labels, showing that the house is really ready to go if you just add some PV to make it essentially a zero energy or zero net positive home. Interestingly enough, Passive House has that name, but it can be used for any type of building, even commercial. There's like a 15-story commercial building in Germany, I know, that uses certification. So for the commercial buildings, it's a little different. On remodeling, they do have a new remodeling program, rehab program, that allows you to not have to go through as much requirements, but certainly to get to the levels Passive House asks for, remodeling can be very difficult. So we're not going to get into all this, but the Passive House program is an entirely pass-fail program. So they're looking at getting your some key numbers here. They're looking at air changes per hour at 50 pascals, which is measured by a blower door test. 0.6, it's a huge achievement if you can get there. They're looking at your heating requirements at a certain kBTU per square foot per year. They're looking at your just straight up primary energy, your lighting, appliances, etc. at 38.1 kBTU per square foot per year. In addition, depending on your climate zone, they're looking, they're going to be rating your U value of your windows, your ventilation systems, heat recovery, and then the fact if you've built thermal bridge-free construction. So basically, no wood or metal studs, moving heat, conducting it out to the outdoors. Is going to be allowed in a Passive House project. And you can go to their website. They have a great online checklist tool that kind of helps you, go through all this. For third-party ratings and process, there's an intensely trained certified Passive House consultant who's usually the designer or the builder who's on the project team. I believe that's a 3-day training. It could be a week. The CPEC submits energy models prior to the construction to Passive House for approval. And then there's a trained and credentialed third-party ResNet rater who also goes through both the Energy Star training, the DOE's training, and then the Passive House's 3-day training. And they submit their documentation to their HERS provider, and then also FIAS probably will be auditing them as well. So it's some really intense auditing going on here. Lots of oversight for this program to ensure it's done correctly. One great thing is that if you're working with your HERS rater, if they haven't done a Passive House project before, I think they can get their feet wet with one without having to go through the entire training just to see how they like it. So that's a great thing. Free checklist for builders online, free Passive House planning design packet. The certification for the Passive House consultant can happen online or in person, 3 days, 8 hours each. and then it's 3 days for the passive house consultant, and then 2 days for the passive house rater training as well. The Institute, FIAS itself, wasn't able to find any kind of political ties there, but obviously they've hitched themselves to DOE and EPA through their baseline programs, so there is that governmental connection already being made. Increasing the cost of construction around 10% for insulation and systems is probably a good number, could even be a little bit more. Increased soft cost, your CPC consultant, like training for the rater, the Energy Star documentation, and then you've got your passive house certification costs and fees to register depending on whether you or your firm are a member. Popularity, Illinois, there's 3 certified projects, 7 pending. Here in Michigan, we've got 1 that's certified under the German standard and a few more underway. Really in the Midwest, there's about 20 projects, not very many. It's very popular in the Pacific Northwest, and then also the Northeast seems to be gaining quite a bit of traction, and they have over 100 projects that are certified and pre-certified in the U.S. Opinions in summary, growing in popularity and demand. There's a huge passive house movement now. It's not just for houses or residential. Existing remodeling is allowed. There's a lot of training, a lot of verification, a lot of auditing. There is a big argument that passive house has a lot of diminishing returns, and what I mean by that is adding all that insulation in could be a bit of an overkill, and people believe there may physically never be a return on investment for adding all that in. It's not just an energy program anymore. If you're using the US version, it's water, air, and a lot of durability built into this program. It works very well for the energy pathway and other certification programs that we're going to be talking about. It just kind of completes that energy pathway, gets all the points out of the way. And one thing that's interesting is now they're advocating for reduced global warming potential by helping people who are using high global warming foam products to find ways to utilize other products that don't have that, or find a way to offset that in other ways of building, carbon offsets or renewable energy on their product. And so don't forget to join us for part 2 of this session, where we're going to be focusing on GreenHome programs that encompass all of the 5 key categories of green. And so we're going to be looking at Lead for Homes, GreenStar, National Green Building Standard, Green Communities, and Living Building Challenge. We'll see you there. Thank you.